Imagine if your DNA could tell a story, one that's been unfolding for thousands of years. A story that connects you to ancient migrations, lost civilizations, and forgotten trade routes. For millions of Filipinos, this isn't just a question to wonder about, this is their genetic reality. It's part of who they are, and it's shocking to think about. The Philippines, a country made up of over 7,000 islands, is home to a wild mix of cultures, languages, and traditions. Each island has its own unique way of life, something to be proud of. But beneath all that, there's a mystery, a question that lingers. Where did the Filipino people come from? For centuries, historians and scientists have tried to answer this question. They've used tools like archaeology and oral history, passing down stories and searching through old ruins. But now, something incredible has happened. Genetics, the study of DNA, has unlocked a new, groundbreaking perspective on this ancient puzzle. And the answers are shocking. By studying ancient DNA, scientists have traced the origins of the Filipino people. They've gone back through thousands of years across vast distances to uncover connections to other parts of the world. What they found is unbelievable, proof of prehistoric migrations, of seafaring ancestors, and even traces of ancient trade with powerful empires. This isn't just science, it's a journey back in time, a deeply emotional discovery that ties Filipinos to the rest of the world in ways we never imagined. The story of the Filipino people is not just one island, one place, or one culture. It's a story of survival, connection, and adventure, all hidden in the DNA that makes us who we are today. Isn't that amazing and sad at the same time? To think that something so important, so deep, has been waiting inside us all along and we're only just starting to uncover it. Every strand of Filipino DNA holds a tiny piece of a mysterious puzzle. It carries secrets that change everything we thought we knew about the past of the Philippines. What if every part of you tells the story of your ancestors? A story that's been buried for thousands of years. In this video, we will take you on a journey through time. From the first humans who stepped onto the islands to the waves of migration that created the Filipino identity we know today. We'll dive deep into the genetic legacy of the Austronesians, look at the impact of trade, and see how colonization left its mark. So hold on tight, because this isn't just history, it's the untold story of the Filipino people, written not in books, but in our blood. It's the kind of story that will make you feel shocked, amazed, and sad all at once. The story of the Filipino people goes back tens of thousands of years before any written history. The first humans to set foot on the Philippines arrived around 50,000 years ago. Imagine that. Long before anyone wrote anything down, these people were already here. Genetic research shows that they were part of the first wave of humans who left Africa and traveled across land bridges and coastal routes to Southeast Asia. These early people, called the Negros, were small, dark-skinned hunter-gatherers who learned how to live in the tropical forests and landscapes of the islands. Their DNA still lives on today in indigenous groups like the Aita, Ati, and Bicol, who carry some of the oldest human DNA in the world. It's almost heartbreaking to think that these ancient people who lived so long ago are still part of the Filipino identity. But the Negros weren't the only ones to shape the Filipino DNA. About 4,000 years ago, a new group arrived, the Austronesians. These incredible sea travelers came from Taiwan, and they spread across the Pacific and Indian Oceans, reaching places like the Philippines. They brought with them new knowledge, new skills, and new cultures that would blend with the older inhabitants to form what we now call the Filipino identity. It's amazing to think that all this history, all these connections live inside us, and yet the story is still being uncovered, piece by piece. It's not just a story of where we've come from, it's the story of who we are, and the emotions of those who lived long before us are still written in our genes. Shocking, sad, but also inspiring. Imagine, all these years the Filipino people are a mix of two great groups that shaped the land, the Negros and the Austronesians. When the Austronesians arrived from Indonesia and Polynesia, they brought with them incredible knowledge, things like farming, pottery, and how to build boats. These skills helped the islands grow into more organized communities and better ways of living. They helped form the very foundation of Filipino life. What's truly shocking and amazing is that modern Filipinos are primarily a mix of the Negros and Austronesians, with the Austronesians being the larger part. But here's the emotional part. This mix didn't happen because one group replaced the other. Instead, over generations, the Negros and Austronesians didn't fight or erase each other. They married, they shared lives, and they built something new together. Their children created a unique, rich genetic blend, which is the very heart of Filipino identity. It's beautiful and sad at the same time to realize that the different physical features of people across the Philippines, people from various islands, are all connected through deep shared genes. You might see someone who looks different from you, but their blood connects to yours. And this is just the start of the Filipino genetic journey. As time went on, the history of the Philippines didn't stop. More and more migrations and cultural exchanges continued to shape the people of the islands. The genetic story of the Philippines is like a vast ocean, constantly changed by waves. Waves of people arriving, sharing, and blending. After the Negros and Austronesians, more groups from across Asia came to the islands, making it a crossroads of different cultures. These new settlers brought their own languages, customs, and genetic markers, each layering over the last, creating something even more complex and beautiful. One of the most important contributions came from mainland Southeast Asia, groups from what is now Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. These groups moved to the Philippines, bringing with them even more cultures and new genetic traits. This changed the gene pool, especially in areas like Luzon and the Visayas. And in a way, it was like painting a masterpiece. More colors, more beauty, more depth. The people of the Philippines became stronger, more diverse, and even more connected than before. To think, this blending, this history is all a part of who we are today. It's a rich tapestry of love, struggle, and unity that connects everyone in the Philippines, whether they know it or not. And it's emotional to realize how far we've come, how many waves have shaped us, and how much we're all connected no matter where we come from. The history of the Philippine people is full of surprising twists and emotions, especially when it comes to genetic diversity. One of the most shocking and significant influences on Filipino DNA came from Chinese traders and settlers. For over 1,000 years, Chinese merchants traveled to the Philippines, bringing with them not just goods, but also their genes. Many of them settled in the islands, married local people, and became part of the community. Today, genetic studies show that many Filipinos, especially in the cities, have Chinese ancestry. It's a reminder of how deeply the cultures have intertwined over the years. But the connections don't end with just China. Filipino DNA holds traces from South Asia, the Middle East, and even Europe. These genetic influences are like hidden treasures that come from ancient trade routes, the spread of Islam, and the Spanish colonization. Every group that came to the islands didn't just leave behind goods or ideas. They also left a part of themselves in the form of their genes. It's almost like the Philippines has been a living canvas, painted with a rich mix of genetic lines. What's truly remarkable is how these diverse genetic influences didn't just remain separate. They blended together, forming a new identity. The Filipino people didn't just absorb these genes, they adapted, evolved, and created something entirely their own. This fusion of ancestries is what makes the Filipino genetic identity so special. It reflects centuries of migration, exchange, and connection that formed the Philippines into the melting pot it is today. Then, in the 16th century, everything changed dramatically. The arrival of the Spanish colonizers marked the beginning of over 300 years of Spanish rule. This period shocked and transformed Filipino culture, religion, and society, but it also left a permanent mark on Filipino genetics. The genetic traces of this colonization are still felt today, as the Spanish influence became another thread woven into the rich and complex fabric of the Filipino identity. Looking back at all these influences, it's hard not to feel the emotional weight of the journey. The Filipino story is one of survival, adaptation, and transformation. It's a reminder of how different cultures, traditions, and genes can come together to create something new, something unique. The genetic story of the Philippines is a reflection of the island's long and complex history, and it's one that continues to unfold with each new discovery. The Spanish influence on the Philippines is an incredibly important chapter in the story of the Filipino people. It's like a new layer was added to the already complex mix of Filipino heritage, and it's a part of the story that can leave you feeling both surprised and moved. Genetic studies show that many Filipinos carry European DNA, mostly from Spain and Portugal. While this European influence isn't as strong as the Southeast Asian and Austronesian roots, it's still a significant part of who many Filipinos are, especially in certain regions. For example, in cities like Manila, where Spanish settlers lived, there are higher levels of European genetic markers. It's incredible to think that these influences come from generations of intermarriage between Spanish soldiers, colonizers, and the local Filipino people, blending European and Filipino traits. But the Spanish didn't just bring their genes to the Philippines. The islands became a key part of the global trade network through the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade. This connected the Philippines not just to Spain, but also to Mexico and other parts of Latin America. As a result, you can even find genetic traces of indigenous Mexicans and other Latin American groups in certain Filipino populations. It's a living reminder of the far-reaching impact of colonialism, showing how it touched not just the Philippines, but the whole world. The colonial era also changed the way Filipino families and communities were structured. The Spanish brought with them a caste system, which shaped patterns of marriage and family life in ways that can be hard to imagine. In some cases, it reinforced social divisions, but in other cases, it created new paths for people from very different backgrounds to come together. This mixing of genes and cultures led to a new diversity that wasn't there before. Despite all the colonial changes, Filipinos didn't lose their indigenous roots. Instead, they adapted, integrating these foreign influences while still holding on to their core Austronesian identities. It's a story of resilience, of a people who have faced so much, but have managed to preserve and embrace all the different elements that make them who they are today. The resilience of the Filipino people is deeply rooted in their genetic makeup, which is like a living history book, one that tells the story of conquest, trade, adaptation, and survival. This resilience shines through the many challenges they've faced over centuries. The colonization chapter of their story shows us how external forces shaped the Filipino genetic identity, but it's just one part of a much larger and even more surprising puzzle. So where does all of this leave the Filipino identity today? While the Austronesians and later the Spanish colonizers significantly shaped the Filipino genetic landscape, another huge part of the puzzle comes from centuries of trade and migration with neighboring regions, especially China and South Asia. These interactions added even more layers of complexity to the Filipino genetic makeup, and the traces of those influences can still be seen in Filipinos today. For over 1,000 years, the Philippines was a center of maritime trade. Chinese merchants, especially from southern China, began settling in the islands long before the Spanish even arrived. Many of these traders married local Filipinos, passing down their genetic legacy to future generations. Today's studies show that southern Chinese ancestry is found in many Filipinos, particularly in urban centers like Manila and Cebu. It's shocking to realize that this influence is not only found in their genes, but also in their culture, from food to language and even family names. The Chinese weren't the only ones to leave their mark, though. South Asian merchants and seafarers also traveled through Southeast Asia, forming trade links with the Philippines as early as the 9th century. Genetic research has revealed traces of Indian ancestry in some Filipino populations, especially in the southern regions like Mindanao. This historical link is also backed by records showing the existence of Indianized kingdoms, like the Rinati of Sulu and Buhuan long before the arrival of the Spanish. It's amazing and a bit sad to realize how so many pieces of history come together in the Filipino genetic identity. Each wave of migration and trade has left its mark, making them who they are today. It's a story of survival, connection, and transformation that stretches over centuries. These migrations didn't just bring new genes, they brought new ideas, technologies, and traditions that would forever change the Filipino way of life. The Indian influence played a role in shaping pre-colonial Filipino spirituality, while Chinese culture impacted trade, architecture, and even the way local economies were organized. These cultures didn't simply change the Filipinos, they blended into their lives and made them unique. Foreign influences were not lost, but adapted and reinterpreted in a way that was distinctly Filipino. The genetic evidence tells a story of openness and exchange. It's shocking to think that the Philippines wasn't an isolated place, but was actually connected to a vast network of people and cultures. Instead of erasing the indigenous identity, these migrations enriched the Filipino genome, making it one of the most diverse in the world. Every wave of people, new ideas, and foreign genes only added to this ever-changing, living story of the Filipino people. It's a story that isn't stuck in the past, it's dynamic, always evolving, growing, and changing with each new chapter of history. And who knows, as science continues to grow, we might uncover even more surprising connections in the genetic history of the Filipino people. When the Spanish colonizers arrived in the Philippines in 1521, they didn't just bring religion and new political systems. They also left an undeniable genetic imprint that would shape the Filipino people for centuries to come. The Spanish colonization, which lasted for over 300 years, added another layer to the already diverse genetic landscape of the nation. But what might shock you is the extent of this influence. While genetic studies show that Spanish ancestry is present in many Filipinos, it's not as widespread as people might think. The Spanish influence is most strongly felt in certain regions, especially in Luzon and the Visayas. This realization might be surprising. It's not as obvious as we might have believed, yet it's still there, lingering in the very DNA of the Filipino people. Where Spanish influence was strongest, something truly shocking happened. What many people think of as Spanish DNA often turns out to be a mix of Iberian and other European ancestries. This is because Spain itself was a genetic melting pot, with Moors, Celts, and Romans all contributing to its history. But that's not the only twist in this story. Spanish colonization also brought people from Latin America, especially from Mexico. The Philippines was ruled as part of the Spanish viceroyalty of New Spain, and ships that sailed between Mexico and the Philippines didn't just carry goods, they carried people too. Mexican and Peruvian soldiers, settlers, and sailors mixed with the local populations, adding even more genetic diversity to the Filipino people. This deep connection explains why some Filipinos share genetic markers with indigenous Latin American groups. It's mind-blowing to realize how far-reaching these influences were, but the changes didn't just stop at DNA. The Spanish era transformed Filipino culture in ways that are still felt today. Catholicism became deeply rooted in Filipino life, and Hispanic surnames spread across the islands. However, many of these surnames were not passed down through bloodlines but assigned by the Spanish colonizers, yet they still became a part of Filipino identity. Spanish language also left its mark, influencing Filipino dialects in ways that continue to echo through generations. And these cultural changes, mixed with indigenous traditions, creating a hybrid Filipino identity that's uniquely its own. It's a blend of old and new, a beautiful reflection of a history shaped by struggle and survival. The genetic evidence reminds us of this painful past, but also of how these difficult times didn't break the Filipino people. Instead, resilience and strength took over. Filipinos didn't lose their identity, they absorbed and adapted the influences around them, transforming into something entirely new. This history is a living testament to the power of human migration and cultural exchange, how even in the face of hardship, vibrant legacies can emerge, and the Filipino spirit continues to thrive stronger than ever. The genetic history of the Philippines is like a living story, a mix of ancient migrations, trade connections, and centuries of cultural exchanges. It's a history full of movement, struggles, and survival. But what does this mean for Filipino identity today? As scientists learn more about the DNA of the Filipino people, one thing becomes absolutely clear. The diversity of the Philippines is its greatest strength. Genetic studies have uncovered something shocking. Filipinos are connected to so many parts of the world. They carry DNA markers from places like East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, the Pacific Islands, the Middle East, and even Europe and Latin America. It's incredible to think how much of the world has shaped the Filipino people. Despite this mix, Filipinos have kept a strong cultural identity, one that ties them deeply to their land, their ancestors, and their history. Insanity for people who want to rise above that kind of tragedy. It's a reminder that identity isn't just about bloodlines or genetics, it's also about the shared experiences, traditions, and stories that are passed down through the generations. Those things, far more than just DNA, make someone who they are. What's even more fascinating is how modern science is now helping Filipinos reconnect with parts of their past that were once lost or forgotten. For example, the discovery of Denisovan DNA in some indigenous groups shows that the Philippines has deep prehistoric roots, and the genetic links to Taiwan and the Polynesian Islands shed light on the incredible seafaring traditions of Filipino ancestors. This shocking discovery helps people see their heritage in a new way, a deep, long history that spans across thousands of years. The new knowledge about Filipino genetics is giving people a chance to look back at their complicated and proud heritage with a sense of pride and curiosity. More and more Filipinos are turning to DNA testing to trace their roots, discovering connections to faraway lands and long-lost relatives. It's like opening a door to a part of their past they never knew existed, a part that brings them closer to their rich, complex identity. The journey of rediscovery is both exciting and emotional, as each discovery brings them closer to who they are and where they come from. This growing interest in genetic ancestry shows a deeper desire among Filipinos to understand where they come from. It's not about losing their identity, but about adding to it, making it richer and more meaningful. The more they discover about the many threads that make up the Filipino DNA, the more beautiful and unique their history becomes. It's like a piece of a puzzle coming together, showing just how amazing the Filipino people are. The story of the Filipino people is still unfolding as scientists continue to study ancient remains, explore new archaeological sites, and dive deeper into genetic analysis. Even more chapters of this epic tale will be revealed. It's like a book that's still being written. But one thing is clear: the story of the Philippines is a story of survival, adaptability, and an unbreakable spirit that refuses to be broken by time, war, or hardship. It's inspiring and moving to know how much they've been through and how far they've come. In the end, the Philippines is not just a collection of islands, it's a living testament to the resilience of its people, a proof of how history shapes us. The genetic code of Filipinos is like a map of that history, one that stretches across thousands of years and countless migrations. This map isn't just about where they're from, it's about the journey, the pain, the struggles, and the triumphs along the way. Every Filipino carries within them a piece of the past. It's like a spark from their ancestors, lighting the path for future generations, and the legacy they've inherited will continue to grow and evolve, forever passing down through the generations. It's heartwarming to know that the story of the Philippines will never be forgotten, and it will continue to inspire and shape the future. The spirit of the Filipino people will live on forever, a beacon for all to see,